Usually we do a quick or like a longer intro. I don't think we should do that. What do you think?
Well, there's a lot to talk about with this show, so I'm excited about that. At the same time, I don't always get nervous. I don't really ever get nervous for the show, but I feel like for this show, this is episode 268. So we've done this. This is our 268th time doing this. But like, I still feel like I'm like just playing modern day media. And so now we're having like, no kidding, media really legend in our community on the show. So I feel like I need to up my game a little bit.
I love that you're nervous. This makes me laugh. When I met this individual, it was when Start Norfolk 1 was happening. We did a quick 10-minute phone call on the show for Start Norfolk 1 back in 2011. Super appreciative of that. And then many times after, was able to go on her show, HearSay. Was it HearSay with Cathy Lewis?
Yep.
Is her name in the name? Smart.
Oh, yes. Smart. Oh, yes.
Smart. People don't realize, like, throwing your name in something, like, there's a real branding aspect to that, because then the repetition of that is there. So, Cathy Lewis, thanks for being here today. You made Tim Ryan nervous.
Well, this is hilarious. When I heard Tim say that, I will now, let's have an under the seal of the confessional, true confession moment here. I've been nervous about this for 10 days. I really haven't, because I'm very rarely in this position, and it gives me great empathy for what I put people through for 25 years. But yeah, I've been nervous about it for a week. So Tim, we are together in our anxiety, and so we will press through together. I mean, very excited to be here.
Is it because you don't know what questions we're going to ask?
Yes.
See, and that's what you guys do to us.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Bringing it back.
This is really. What is this, karma or turnabout is fair play or whatever? Yes,
the hunter totally becomes the hunted.
Yes. So I will confess to my anxiety, but I think I love both you guys, and so I think we're going to have a great time of it. I love the idea of an hour just to kind of see where a conversation goes. That is magical, and I hope people listening will have a fun time of it.
Yeah. Can we get a traffic report first?
Yeah, what's the downtown tunnel looking like?
Well, so my office is in Dominion Tower, and I am on the 14th floor. And so I've always threatened to do my side hustle would be just letting people know what the downtown tunnel is doing, because I can look at it out. It's pretty clear right now, but I can look at it out my window, which I love. This is the loveliest office I have ever had in my career, and it is delightful. I can tell when it's a clear day because I can see town center from here. It looks like Oz rising out of the mist. So it's a lovely situation, and there is no way I ever thought I could be in an office in Dominion Tower. But one of the things I've really become a big believer in is looking at what's going on in the world. And figuring out where there may be opportunities for you. And so when when COVID came, and of course we all went home, and then not all of us came back to the office, folks have some office space now that they had previously had occupied or whatever. And these leases are 40 years. They're not that long, but they're not 10-minute leases. So people now may have office space that they're not using, and they may be able to they may be happy to have you use an office in their facility for less than the market rate. So that's my pro tip for the day. And then I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't just sort of explored a conversation and asked a friend of mine who I knew worked in this building. I was like, do you know anybody in that building who might, this might be a thing? And she said, yeah, actually I do. So here we are. So I have my wonderful map of Hampton Roads, the area that I know and love. And if you ever need to know what's going on at the downtown tunnel, text me. I will let you know.
I would never get anything done with a view like that. That's just
Well, this is why the desk is, it's behind me, because that you're right. That's it's a bit of a distraction, but a beautiful one. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyone that has any question about the greatness of Hampton Roads, they just need an office with a view like that, and you would appreciate it every single day.
You are so right, and I love during the day when I'm bad about taking breaks, but I'm trying to get better. because this wonderful waterfront down here. I can go and walk and look at the working waterfront, which is very interesting. And I like this because there's a lot of tourists that kind of come up and down by Town Point Park and what have you. And it's just really, oftentimes, people will have a little bewildered look in their eyes, and I'll say, hey, you have a question? And there may be cruise people or tourists or whatever. And it's delightful to interact with them. And to find out what they like about what they're seeing. I love that. And this is such a great region to visit that, I don't know, that makes me very proud to show off our fair city and our fair area.
I just came back from a cruise a couple of weeks ago, and like the best part of the cruise, I was up on the running track on deck 11 or 12, coming back on the Elizabeth River. And it was just so much fun to as I'm running around the track, all right, this is what Portsmouth is looking like, and this is what Norfolk is looking like, and that was the best part of the cruise. It was great.
Oh, that's magnificent. I thought about taking a cruise out of Norfolk, but then I thought, I don't know, because I don't know if you felt this way, but I'd be like, look, I mean, what if I have one too many, Mai Tais or something, these would be all people I know getting on.
Right.
So
the crazy,
that is
I didn't know a lot of people.
See?
There was a lot of people from our neighborhood. There was like a group of 47 of them or something like that. But thankfully, I did not run into.
So it's big enough.
47 people in your own neighborhood were on the same cruise as you, but you didn't run into them?
Like from the principal of the school all the way on down. It was.
Oh, wow.
But it's great. It's such an awesome thing that we have that we can build upon, because we're bringing people in from all over the place to
it's
really
nice that it's year
showcase
round
our
too
region.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And every time I drive around the corner and, you see that ship when it comes in, and you're just like, how in the world is it fitting in the river? Right? They're massive, but they're so much fun to watch. And to me, that's just more people coming and discovering what a great place this is. So you're convincing me. I will never be on the 11th deck on the track. I'm just going to be very clear about that. But but now I'm kind of becoming convinced maybe that would be a thing that I need to, swallow my anxiety about it and go give it a shot. Right.
Yeah.
Zach,
I think that my wife she's already looking for the next one
okay. Yeah. So we've probably been on like 8 or 9.
Really?
And mostly out of Norfolk, just because we live here.
Because it's here, right?
And it's easy.
Yeah.
And so what's the worst thing traveling is going to the airport. So now you eliminate that. Like when I lived in Ghent,
easy.
It was 2 minutes away.
Yeah.
Now
right? You can walk down there. Yeah.
Yeah. We Ubered in, Ubered out, and there was no surge pricing or anything. It was so easy.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, now you've convinced me. I'm going to have to do that, because I get so excited when I see the people, they're all happy coming to the cruise ship. They are all happy. And
then exhausted getting off.
Yes. So
I think you'd be okay with the cocktail aspect of it. Like there's enough. Okay. Yeah. So like the only rowdy place really on the boat, I guess the club, but that's really late. I wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be out there.
I'm not going to be
there.
Yeah. Right. And then the pool, but there's so much nonsense going on at the pool that you're not the attraction in that case.
Yes.
So people are seeing other. There's so much other. There's always there's great people watching. There's always some rando doing something ridiculous that you're just
nice.
Like,
yeah. So that sounds fun. I'm going to have to do it now.
And they're relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, I've often thought that would be such a fun, got different groups of, little girls groups that we travel with and go different places. And I've often thought that would be super fun, just put a little group together. It would be a great, that would just be a great time. So now you have convinced me. And after we wrap up today's recording, I am going to go check out the website.
Check that one off the box. Here we go.
Yeah.
So in interviewing people, I don't like to know the questions beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a first coffee, even if I know the person, right? I mean, there's some touch points that I want to go there. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you get people comfortable in that situation? I think it's like figuring out something and like humanize them and
Absolutely.
I mean, what's the first thing we talked about? Traffic. It was like, okay, like they're comfortable now. So now you're probably going to be comfortable the rest of the time.
Exactly right.
And it's like, I guess I just realized that over time. Was there a trick that you learned back in the day to get people to feel comfortable when you were interviewing them?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Zach, because to me, it was about being that present moment with the person. So I am the same. I used to drive me crazy when people say, can you send me a list of questions? And I'm like, well, I can tell you broadly the category, like I like your questionnaire, it's like, here are the broad things you want people to know or take away or whatever. And I like that because why would that stunts spontaneous conversation. And so, usually I will ask somebody, well, what was happening before you got on this call? Just so that we can kind of talk about that. And that's a good doorway. People I've known for a long time, and this was the great delight of doing that show for 25 years is I had people, guests and what have you, that I had known and had on over time for 25 years. So, our children were relatively the same age, so we could talk about that. And that to me was delightful that, even the most famous or powerful kind of person still has some of the same, struggles or experiences that I do. And so I think connecting over shared experience is a great way to make people feel comfortable. Oh, we share that. Okay. Well, now we can have a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, don't you want the person asking the questions to be listening to you? And then if there's more feedback that needs to be from that, and so like, here's the 5 questions that I'm going to ask. It's like, no, right. You just said this one thing. So I do this all the time. If someone opens up something ridiculous on here, like I'm not going to skirt past that. I'm going to be like, oh, well, tell me a little bit more about what you just said. Because I think it's important. And it's like, if you're not listening as the interviewer, I feel like you're doing your audience a disservice.
Yeah. No, I was thinking back. And the other thing it can do for you is it can really bridge a gap. Because I was thinking back to this interview I did, this was 1,000 years ago, with a delegate in the General Assembly. And he was not from this area. So I met him one time in person. And he was very conservative, and he was kind of leading the charge on some of the very conservative social women's reproductive health issues. And so, kind of a polarizing figure. And I read somewhere that he carries a camera with him and takes pictures. When people come to his office, he takes pictures of them visiting the office. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. And so I said to him, Delegate, why? I'm just curious. I read this about you. Why do you do that? And wow, he said, I'll tell you why I do it. He said, I had a son and we had, amazing experiences together, and he was killed in a car crash when he was 17. And it struck me that these moments have meaning for people, that they are moments they can look back on, whether their children are still here or not. It is an important moment when you come to see the seat of power. And I wanted to give them something that they could remember that by. And I wanted to recognize the importance of that as a shared family experience, because in my life, I had a limited number of them. And I just thought, wow. I mean, that's an answer, right? I mean, and it was so authentic. Got me a little choked up, but yeah, I mean, it was so authentic. And what I loved about that is, there's a guy, I'm sure there are people who heard his positions on these social issues and were probably really opposed, or may have been looking for an excuse to kind of tune him out, because that's how it is now, right? I don't agree with you, and therefore I shut you down. But to me, that idea of being able to connect, and I had several people say that afterwards, is that they really felt a sense of connection to him. And I think those kinds of moments keep us from jumping into immediately the polarization that seems to be, so prevalent. It has been for some time. But to see people as human, I mean, I'll never forget that. And I never looked at that guy the same again, because I had him in my head. Oh, yes, of course, that's Delegate Umtefritz, who has this position on this issue, and he's, from this county or whatever it was. And you can't look at people the same way after you plumb down and get that shared experience. It's very human. It had nothing to do with politics.
Yeah, that's gosh. It's things like that really, I don't know, it makes me want to step back.
Yes, and to your point about if you have the list of questions, then other people might have just gone, okay, thank you for that. Let's go to question number 6. Well,
right.
I don't remember anything about whatever else he said in that interview. It's probably bad on me, but I really don't. I remember that moment, and that probably happened 20 years ago, and it's still, it's still with me.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about time before we went live, and like the last thing I want to do is someone preparing answers for 5-10 questions, and then they get upset because we didn't get to those questions because the conversation took us in a different direction. Yeah. And to me, I would much rather the conversation go in a fun way.
Yes.
Whoever's listening while we're having the conversation, that's great. But I really enjoy the conversations and getting to know people for who they are.
And can I just say that your questionnaire was great, because what it gave me the opportunity to do, and probably was why I was anxious for 10 days, but what it gave me the opportunity to do was reflect on my own kind of business and where I am now. And it helped me realize some things that I hadn't quite put together about the work that I'm pursuing, and, what I'm saying no to, and all the fact that I am saying no, that they were great questions. And so I wanted to thank you for that, because honestly, I felt like I got a little strategic planning exercise out of that. So I really appreciated it. They were great.
You're welcome. We'll send you an invoice.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So other than this show, what makes you nervous?
What makes me nervous? Okay. Cooking for other people. Like I was just talking to somebody about this morning. Entertaining. I love to entertain. My goal in life is to be an effortless and, gracious kind of entertainer. And we were fortunate to have dinner in friends of ours' home last night. It was the most lovely, simple, gracious, thoroughly authentic, connected experience that you would want to have. That is one of my life goals, is to try to achieve that level of comfort with entertaining in my home, because I love conversation. I love to have people in, but if you have people in for dinner, you have to feed them. And so I'm trying to get really comfortable with them. Like, I can cook. I'm not the greatest cook in America, but I can get it done. But the thought of cooking, right? Yes. The thought of cooking for other people and making it all come out on time. Yeah, I'm working on that. So yeah, so for my husband's birthday this year, we did an afternoon tea and just had a couple of folks over. So that was sort of my, tea. It's tea. It's little sandwiches that you make in advance. It's little things, So this was part of my, what do they call that? Exposure therapy. Let's jump into it a little bit at a time. You're afraid of snakes, you go pet the little garter snake. That was kind of what that was. And we had a wonderful time. So I will build on that. But yeah, that scares me. I mean, yeah. And it's sad, because I love talking to people. I love having salon style, conversations. And so I've got to get over it, because it's a barrier. So I'm working on that.
What I would say to that is be careful what you wish for. So like this past year, my father-in-law forever has made Thanksgiving dinner. He's getting a little older, and I was like, well, you know what? I cook a lot. Let me throw my name in the hat.
Okay.
So they let me do it. I really tried making the greatest dinner of all time.
Yes.
So it's now come to my attention that that is now my job. So be careful what you wish for.
Especially when you do a good job. Yeah.
I did a damn good job. I hate turkey. That turkey was damn good. I brined it, spatchcocked it.
Did you cook it the day before? Because I did that, and I liked that, cooking it the day before.
I did not. But I did the 24-hour brine, which was quite interesting. I guess that gives it a juiciness.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Who cooks your dinner, Tim? For Thanksgiving?
For the day-to-day?
No, the Thanksgiving dinner. Do you do that?
Oh, I usually do the turkey on the grill, on the rotisserie or the Traeger. That's my thing.
The Traeger's a smoker, or is it a grill?
smoker. Yeah, he's a smoker. But before the Traeger, I would do it on the grill on the rotisserie.
That sounds
And
good,
do you do all the sides, or because I think one of the genius hacks is to have everybody else do the sides. Like my cousin
Yeah.
makes some great candied yams, which I hate yams, but she makes that and everybody loves it. And so that's
Yeah.
a genius hack right
We
there.
do
Everybody
split
brings
that up.
something. Good.
Eat yams.
I know.
Is that
And
a
I
Southern
love
thing?
potatoes. I don't know. I can't stand the texture and it's too sweet. And so I just have like, I have almost you just like a visceral, I have a violent dislike of yams. So
Yeah.
it can be said, yes, I have a violent dislike of yams.
I mean, coming from a Marshall girl, I can understand that.
That's right. That's right.
I was waiting for some sort of comment like that to surface.
Come on, this is just real.
Yeah.
How did you guys officially meet for the first time?
It was at CIVIC. So
yes,
that
that's
was
exactly right,
like the in between period, some
Yes.
transition, and Cathy came in to finish our class.
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. I was trying to remember when you were, and I did probably 20 classes altogether. So it's hard to remember who was, in each class, but that's exactly right. So I came in for like 6 months just between leadership to,
Yep.
And it was great because I knew how to do the job. So it was the easiest job I ever said yes to. And I loved it. It was great to be kind of back. What I appreciated is that all the planning had been done. I'm sorry?
Did you start CIVIC? Was that something?
So I did not start it, but it started in 1996 by a woman called Kay Kemper, who's amazing. She worked at ODU, and they kind of tinkered around with it until 1998. And that what I did in 98 was I was asked to come in and facilitate the program days, which I loved. So I did not run the organization. Then Kay, who is enormously talented, decided to open her own government relations firm called Kemper Consulting. Smartest thing she ever did. It was fabulously successful. But that was in 2001. And so in, I guess, April or May of 2001, I got a call from the late marvelous philanthropist, my surrogate dad, Josh Darden. And he asked me, he called me, I'll never forget this. He called me in the office one day and he said, "Now I'm going to need you to run CIVIC." And I said, he had this just charming Southern accent. And I said, Mr. Darden, I appreciate your confidence. You don't, I have no, and I didn't, I had no experience to be qualified to do that. None. And he said, "Well, I think you can do it and I'm going to be here to help you." And I thought, okay. And then I learned what everybody else already knew, which is you just really don't say no to him. So I said yes. And so now get the timing of this. So I started on July 1st of 2001. And you know what happened on September 11th. So that was our first opening retreat, which is, for the listeners who may not know, that's just like a 2-day big intensive. We bring everybody together to meet each other, and they're going to spend the next 9 months, 1 day a month together, learning about the region and the challenges and opportunities and the like. So so September 11th, we were leaving on a Thursday for our retreat. September 11th was on a Tuesday. And so that was, well, you live and you learn. And so I will forever sing their praises. The Williamsburg Lodge was where we were going to have it. And they just said, "Don't worry about it. We'll reschedule it." And because that was my nightmare. Oh, great. My first event, and I'm inside the cancellation time, and they're going to charge me this, but everybody was being very understanding about it at that point. But so that's I had the first, so that's when I came into it fully in terms of running it, was 2001. And I did that till 2019.
Wow.
And
that was such a great program.
Thank you. Privilege of a lifetime to work with Josh Darden. I learned so much from that man. I learned so much.
From a region standpoint, everyone thinks that they have an idea and understanding of the region, but when you go through something like CIVIC, I quickly realized how much I did not know about the region.
Really? Good. I'm glad.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's great. The other thing I think we try to do, I still say we, but we try to do in Civic is we really work hard to look, when you have leaders who are at the level of the folks that are in Civic, which is senior level leadership. These are either founders, or they could be executives. I mean, these are people who are at the height of their careers typically. And so when you get those folks in a room, as you know, that experience is pretty rarefied, and you sometimes, understandably, kind of can forget what life is like for the people at every stage of the work ladder. And so one of the things I felt really proud of is that we really made a point of exposing these executives to what life is like for the people who work for them and for the people who work for their organizations. And so one of my favorite memories of that whole time was there's a guy who still runs Westminster Canterbury, is an amazing leader named Ben Uncle. And Ben went through the program, and we did this simulation of a day in the life of the working poor. So this is not people in poverty, these are people who have jobs. And it's a simulation. It's about a 3-hour simulation where you set people up with like an alias or an assumed identity, and you give them a family structure, and you give them, this is your job and these are your hours, and that sort of thing. So we set them up with that, and he went through this experience, and then through the 3 hours, you throw things at these people like, oh, guess what? Your rent just went up 15%, and in your little play money bucket, you only have this much money. He was so moved by that he went back to the board at Westminster Canterbury and said, we have an obligation to the people who work here to pay them a living wage. And so I've forgotten what the calculation of a living wage was at that point. But he challenged the board and said, we really need to be paying these people a living wage. And to their credit, they said yes. And he said it was a really transformative experience. And so I really feel very proud and happy and satisfied about the fact that this wasn't, we tried to present people with opportunities to say, look, if you had to get here today by a bus, how would you do it? Because I couldn't, I don't know,
right.
Most people at that point, this was before the apps, so, well, here's the map, and we just hand out the map and say, okay, well, what's it going to cost? What buses are you going to take? What time are you going to leave? And what time are you going to arrive?
Right.
And when people realize, holy smokes, we cannot get around this region by bus. I shouldn't say that. Not everyone can get around the region by bus. That is a profound awareness. So to connect people with skills and talent and expertise to community problems.
Well, and the beauty, taking that one step further, the thing that's so great is it's all business leaders that are decision makers, that those connections are made instantly, and they can make those decisions almost on the spot to impact change.
Yes, there's so much that got done because somebody knew somebody in Civic, picked up the phone and said, hey, this is a problem. Can we work this out? And it happens. I mean, that will forever be just work I feel really good about and so happy about. And yeah.
Best class ever?
Can't say that. You will not back me into that corner.
I mean, I tried.
But nice try. Try. And
is there a class that you remember as being like a little above? Let's see.
But I can't. But I can't say that. But the current president, Mary Kate Andrus, is doing a great job. She is a Civic alum. So that was the other point that we wanted to get to. Not that you had to be a Civic alum to run Civic, but what a great thing to me that the program has grown and the program is producing people who want to lead it. So that's a very happy thing too.
What did you what'd you study in college at Marshall?
Broadcast journalism. Journalism.
What are your thoughts on college these days, 2025? What's Cathy Lewis thought?
That is a great that's a great question. I think, and I'm very privileged to do some work for Old Dominion, which I love and adore because it's giving great opportunities for first generation students. And I mean, it's a great place. But I think what I'm starting to see and what I think smart college presidents are recognizing is that, and Brian O'Hemphill, the president of Old Dominion, is a smart college president. And he talked about this last year, that that colleges are going to have to start thinking about certifications and workplace knowledge, and starting to integrate that into the college experience, which I think is very smart.
Yep.
And so his thinking is, he wants to get to a place where everybody graduates with their degree, but with some sort of, certificate that says, hey, I know how to do this. I can do this. And and I think a lot of colleges are moving that direction, which I think is very smart. I'll be honest with you. It is very expensive. Obviously, if you've put children through, you know that. I think college is a great thing. I think if you don't know what you want, I was fortunate. I always knew what I wanted to do, but you don't know what you want to do. If you don't know yet what you want to do, I think it's a great idea to get a skill or to go to 2 years of 2 years of community college. If you're stepping into the 4-year environment, I know, and people will probably disagree with that, but I think it is such an expensive venture now that you really ought to kind of have a narrowed down idea of what you want to do. It's a very expensive place to figure that out. And so, that's my take.
I do think that a recalibration of sorts needs to certainly happen. Job market is changing really, really fast.
Yes. Yeah.
I love this certificate idea. I think that's it's smart. Like, I have a broadcast news degree as well.
You too.
I feel like,
know that.
Yeah. So I loved my time in Morgantown.
Yeah.
I would not say anything bad about Morgantown. However, there's that caveat. It's like I learned more in my first week at a TV station than I did my entire time in school.
Yes.
And
I appreciate that.
It makes me really, like, I look at that and I go, okay, so that's $100,000 decision that I could have figured out in a week by just calling someone and saying, hey, can I get this gig?
Yeah.
Now
I'll give you a counter perspective on that. Just not a counter perspective, but a complementary perspective. What I learned in college, yes, I agree with you totally. You work in a newsroom, man, you're going to learn that stuff or you're not going to make it.
Deadlines.
Right? Deadlines. And that has influenced, I don't know about you, Zach, but that's influenced my whole life. Back timing a show. Okay, we got to start at 6. We're going to finish at 6:30. That's a deadline. You have to finish at 6:30. That's been really helpful to me. But what I learned in college was ethics. What I learned in college was law around, journalism. And all of
I might have learned that. I might have taken the
background.
class, but I don't remember.
Well, having gone to college in West Virginia, you will know that. Yeah. So I took comparative religion. I went to Marshall, yes. And I took a comparative religion class. And that was the one I decided I was going to skate on a little bit because I was doing other things. And so I show up in class having not been there for a little bit of time. And it's the day somebody does a report on snake handling as a religion and had snakes there. And I'm like, this is why I don't come to this class, honestly. So you got to be careful about that not showing up thing. But the whole thing I learned in college about journalism, which has served me to this day, is, law, ethics, and the opportunity to sit back and have conversations about that. And I do think so much of that is missing in our current environment. I mean, and Zach, I don't know if you would agree with this, but what we have today in TV news, and would that have been something that your professors at Morgantown would have been happy with?
No, I mean, I think I think of sources, right? Like there's two sides to every story, and then maybe the truth, right, in the middle. But you're trying to get both of those sides. I don't feel like in journalism we see a lot of that. I feel like it's more just like entertainment at this point. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we really should treat it like that and say it's just another channel on the TV dial. And that's definitely not what I learned. I mean, I don't read a lot of things in the paper and things like that. But I remember the last time I really saw a really well journalistic post was when they did the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, really long piece by the pilot. And it was 10, 15, 20 pages. And it was really thorough about the whole piece. I was like, okay, that's it was like a documentary in written form. And I was okay, that really gets the whole gambit of what it is. We don't see that. We're just trying to get first to go. And I think about the Ryan Lochte Olympics when it was clearly a lie. There was no fact checking in that. And I'm like, if we couldn't even get that right, what makes it, which is something so like trivial, what makes us think that we're going to get real serious things correct when we're just trying to be the first on air and that's all that matters because you want those eyeballs? Like that's,
Right.
Yes.
that's not the way I was taught. That's not the way I really
No.
look at it. It's like, you want to make sure this is thorough and as correct as possible.
And then going back to Cathy's point in terms of timelines, you can't have a long form conversation. Then you narrow it down to a 7-second snippet because you have to meet the timeline.
Yes, it's very hard. It's very, and I'll tell you, you know, I feel like now I'm starting to sound like, get off my lawn, but, you know, but there is this, you know, there was a certain wisdom to back in the day. Your news came on at national news came on at 6:30. Now, people listening to this are going to be like, were you born when after the Lincoln assassination? But it came on at 6:30. It was off by 7. So, and there was none of this live stuff unless something really dreadful happened.
And you only had 3 choices.
Yes. So everything that happened was in that 30 minutes, and it forced them to make decisions about what's most important. You know, and I would say now we have 30 minutes of news crammed into 24 hours. Like that's, you know, so that's part of the reason why you get all of this this stuff that's either not really news or just like live speculation. That's all it. Well, it could be this or it could be this. Tell you what, go figure out what it is and come back to me when you figure it. That's what I want to say every time I see that. You know, well, we don't know. We're live. It could be this. It could be that.
Tim did this thing. I think he probably did this on the show, but like he brought this to my attention. It's basically like the word should or could in a headline is really like you're sitting there like, okay, well, there's nothing to that.
That is such a great point. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah. So when I see that now, I'm like,
great point.
Yeah.
It's not a factual statement.
I mean, I will typically not read anything if it's could, should, might, may, possibly. I mean, it's just like, this is all speculation, you know, so
yes.
there's.
And that is great advice, Tim, because really, you know, that would simplify all of our lives. I don't know about you guys, but I do feel overwhelmed with, you know, the amount of information that's coming at you and trying to figure out what you're looking at and what you're not. And my media habits have changed without question. My media habits, you know, have changed. So that's a very helpful thing. I'm gonna be on the lookout for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of change. I don't think that journalists are produced the same way as they once were.
No, and part of it is, you know, when you had, and I started when we still had the 30-minute newscast, but then very shortly after I started, we started getting a noon newscast, you know, so always you had an 11, I should have said that, but then they started getting the noons and then the 5s, and then we're just on all the time. But but I think what was helpful about that is that it gave you time to go out and figure out what the truth was, or to track down sources or whatever. I don't know how we expect these people, like when they go to these people live, I don't know how you expect them to do their job, because all they're doing, because you keep going back to them live, they don't have time to go check out and see what's really going on. So I think it's a really unfortunate moment. There's some things are really good about it, but there's a lot that's very unfortunate. And then I think the manipulation of, okay, maybe, you know, the concentration of ownership is a problem. And then the other thing is all of these consultants, you know, that come in. And I know in this market, I'm not going to say which station it was, I was told that in a station in this market, there was a sign on everybody's desks that said, does it matter to an 18 to 35-year-old? And I just thought, wow. I mean, I think 18 to 35-year-olds are very important. Having said that, since I am not 18 to 35, you know, I would like to think that somebody thinks what's important to my age range might be important too. So anyway,
is that saying the demo is important in that case? That's who they're trying to get. Interesting.
I'm sorry, I should have explained that. Thank you. Yeah, they're going for that demographic, and I understand that as a business imperative. I completely get that, but you know, the 18 to 30. I'll give an example. 18 to 35. You know, we've got this bill that's just, I guess, making its way through the House. That's going to, you know, have some significant Medicaid cuts in it. I think that's an amazing story and a very troubling story, because that 18 to 35-year-old may not care about that much right now. that 18 to 35-year-old, when they get to be 40, 45, 50, and they have to keep their parents in their home because the Medicaid funds that would have facilitated them being able to have their loved ones in some sort of facility that matched their need for care are not going to be there, or it won't be there in the abundance that it is right now, which is not abundant, but it is what it is. That's going to be a story that matters. And so I think that's an interesting way to look at these stories. How does it hit you depending on which generation you're in? I think that's fascinating. This aging thing is going to be huge. Yeah, that's going to be huge.
When I worked in TV, I think probably the last straw for me when I wanted to get out was worked at a TV station locally, and there was no hard hitting 11 o'clock news. And they had this thing called the breaking news bell that would ring, basically hoping that something would hit. And I'm like, okay, so you're hoping that like there's this thing, like if it bleeds, it leads. Like if someone gets murdered, that's okay. I'm like, that should not be what we're wishing. It's like, it's just terrible. And that's what I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I had an experience that was kind of a similar experience in terms of the breaking point was, and I want to be careful how I tell this story, but there was a family that kind of rolled through Virginia Beach, and there was much adulation about them because they were adopting all of these special needs children, and it looked on the surface like a really good story. Turned out they were abusing these children, and it's a terrible, sad, gross story, but the little boy died. One of the little boys that had been hospitalized died. And I was noon anchor at that point. And so we, said the little boy had died, and that was sad. And we came back to the newsroom afterwards. The then news director said, now, here's what I want us to do. I want us to go out and find the other 11 children and find out how they feel about their brother's death. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you're talking about the 11 minor children. Am I getting that? This is what I'm thinking to myself. And to their credit, several people in the newsroom said, you know what, that may be how you do it in New York. That's not how we do it here. That's not a good idea. And these children were all in foster care. I'm like, well, how do you think they would feel? It's gross. Like, I can't even, it's so gross. It was disgusting. So I went to him privately afterwards and I said, look, I'm very troubled by that. And I need you to know it's just not something I'm going to be able to do. And he said, well, then you don't have any right to call yourself a reporter. And I thought, I guess that's right. I guess that's true. I think in every career, there may come a moment where you have been aligned and it's a fit, and then you're not a fit anymore. And so that was the moment I said, okay, yep, I think you're right. I think this is not right for me. That is exactly right, because I cannot do that. So I made a very graceful exit, and that was it. But I think if we're honest, wherever you are in your career, you may have had one of those experiences that is, a sentinel moment or a moment where you think, yeah, I think this is, our paths have diverged. So that was a gross day. I mean, I still to this day think about it and think that's disgusting. And, these things happen.
Well, you have had a very storied career doing what you're doing. Like how did you start? Day one, how did you start in terms of, was there a strategy to that? And how did you stay current, and how do you continue to stay current for so long?
So as I said a moment ago, I felt very fortunate to know what I wanted to do. So when I went to Marshall University, I knew what I wanted to do. And I worked, the great Boz Johnson, who was a local legendary anchor, who was recruited to NBC News and just had 5 children in Huntington, West Virginia. And he decided he was going to stay there and devote himself to that place. Had tremendous respect for him. He was a real ethical leader for me and a real North Star. And so when I was rolling through school, and between my junior and senior year, I worked out enough credits that I got it done in 3 years. But between my junior and senior year, I got an internship at the local television station. And I know, Zach, you know this. When you work in Huntington or Morgantown or any of these small markets, you get to do everything. I was 19 years old producing an 11 o'clock newscast, which was a really dumb decision on their part, truly. I mean, very dumb. But I mean, I was doing it, and I had a train wreck one night. Back in the day, you'd had everything was on these carts, and they had to be in order. And I don't know what happened, but it just hit a thing where the order wasn't going, and so nothing was hitting. And I was 19 years old, and I was devastated, and I knew that this was going to be the end of my career. And the director, everybody smoked then, so the director kicked back in his chair, put his feet up on the switcher, pulled a cigarette pack out, starts puffing, and says, "Little lady, you're going to get this, but we're just going to put up a trouble slide until you do." So he put up one of those technical difficulty slides. Took me about 3 minutes to get my mess together, and then we proceeded. And I've often thought about that, because I was like, he knew it wasn't the end of the world. To me, it felt like the end of the world. I thought I was going to lose my job, but it wasn't. We figured it out and came back, and the world continued to turn, and everything was fine. So then I worked in Huntington for a couple of years, and then if you've worked in Huntington for a couple of years, you're probably ready for something else. And I felt very ready for something else. So back in the day, we had this thing called Broadcasting Magazine, which was where you found out about jobs. There was a section in the back. Zach, you're much younger than I am. I don't know if this was the case when you were in this business or not, but there's a section in the back that says television stations seeking reporters, whatever it is. And it said East Coast television station seeks general assignment reporter. And I thought, by this point, I didn't care where it was on the East Coast. I did not care. I applied for it. And then they brought me out for an interview, and I got the job. Yay. But I did not know where it was. And then I had to do some research, just to figure out, where is Norfolk? I don't know where that is. And I don't care, because I'm going there. And so I put all of my stuff in a U-Haul, and a friend of mine and I drove it over the mountains, and I, and then I started here, and I really thought I was going to be here for a minute and then go be a London correspondent in a trench coat, very attractive, and working for the network. And, and then I don't know, I got here, I fell in love with this community, then, met my husband and had my daughter. And so, then you blink your eyes and it's 45 years and you're like, So, but it has been the happiest. This is all I ever wanted to do, was to come to a place and hope to make a difference and live in a great community and contribute to a great community. That's really all I ever wanted to do. I grew up in the service, so we moved around a lot. So, that deep root thing was not really a part of my life. And I always wanted that. And I feel so fortunate and so happy to have found it here with, great folks like you. I so love what you're doing in this entrepreneurial space and supporting that sector of the community. So for me, it's like, it's been a great run, but I'm still excited to see what comes tomorrow, right? I mean, I'm still excited to see what comes tomorrow.
Well, thank you for those kind words.
Yeah, no, I really mean it. And the other thing, I think, Zach, maybe you said this to me, or you were speaking at one of the Hatch things or something, and you said something that really it kind of struck me and made me take a look at things. You were talking about the entrepreneurial spirit, and you were kind of describing the character traits of an entrepreneur. And I really thought of myself at that point as, I think that's me. I think I'm an entrepreneur. I think I am. And then when you said that, the more I thought about it, the more I really looked at it, I thought, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur in the way that you're thinking about it, because I had to be honest and say, I don't have the risk tolerance, that entrepreneurs have. And I have so much respect for that, that moment where you can just say, yeah, I'm going to put it all on the line. That is a brave and courageous thing to do. And I very much respect and admire that. And the idea that you sometimes will temporarily fail, and you get up and you dust yourself off and you get back to it. That's another thing I respect and admire. And so, yeah, that was very helpful to me.
Yeah, I think you only really fail when you quit. Everything else is just a learning experience and being able to move on from it. And so one of my favorite quotes is by the former Duke basketball coach, Mike Krzyzewski. Don't ask me to spell it. Please probably not even ask me to say that last name again. Coach K.
Coach K.
It's next play. It's basically like, okay, like you had a bad play, move on. And just immediately next play, like move on.
Yeah.
Don't make that same mistake again.
Next play.
But
That's great. Yeah.
And so ever since I heard that maybe 5-10 years ago, I'm like, okay, like that makes a lot of sense, because we dwell on these things, and it's like you want to learn from it, but don't be on it for so long. So we live in an interesting region. I think there is often lots of positivity, often lots of negativity. From a business perspective, is there one thing that you think really needs to change that would really take us to that next step?
That's a great question.
Let me bait it a little differently.
Okay.
I think forever people have said that the infighting or the lack of regionalism is the reason why this region hasn't done that thing. I personally think that's BS. I think that's just a cop-out, right? I think it's a scapegoat, right? So most of the time that's what people are going to say. Knowing that, is there something that you've seen in your many years with businesses that seems like, okay, this is really just that catalyst that needs to happen to get there?
So this is not going to move the fate of Western civilization, but I tend to agree with you about that whole business of we need to be, we need to codify it, be one region. Yeah, go back in time, maybe we should have done that. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we are where we are, and so I appreciate all these moments where cities are starting to work together in spite of it all, and businesses are starting to work together in spite of it all. I think that's fantastic. The one thing I think we could do better with, and I just felt this way for a little while now. We have so many young people who've grown up in this region who know what a great place it is to live and work. They leave here and they go to Richmond, they go to Washington, they go to New York, they go to Raleigh. I mean, they go other places, obviously, but those are kind of the main places that they go. And so they go for, 5-8 years, whatever it is, they do their thing. I wish we could get more of those young people back here. And I'll tell you why. I think it's really, I heard somebody from Brookings say this once, and I thought it made abundant sense. We are not going to be able to go out and say to a young person, coming out of college or technical school has great experience, come here. You don't know anything about this region, but come here, trust us, it's great. But we do have people who've grown up here who would love to come back here if the jobs were here, if the things that they care about were here, that kind of thing. And so I think if, and this is easier said than done, but I think we could really use some sort of a concerted campaign to target, especially after COVID, by the way, when we discovered we could remote work, and many of us are still doing that, a concerted campaign to lure back some of these young people who have left for better jobs, more money, but are now at the point in their lives where they're saying, Washington, it's a tough city to live in. It's a tough city to raise a family in. You can't, you can't necessarily buy a house in Washington, D.C. to grow your family. If that's what you're thinking, then this is a great place to do it. But you have to have the job, and you have to have kind of the social supports to do that. So I remember I was riding on the Washington Metro, and there was a poster up there about come to Virginia Beach. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we had some sort of campaign that was targeted to young professionals that said, come home and let it, if you've been gone for 10 years, there's a lot going on here that wasn't going on here maybe when you left. And oh, by the way, everybody goes and tries something else because they think, that's going to be the grass is greener thing. People are in different phases and stages of their lives. And I know so many people who have done that successfully and happily. If you grew up here, you've got family here, and it's a great place to live near the beach and all the rest of it. I feel like we should leverage that a little bit more and do really targeted efforts to get some of these young people back. The jobs have to be here, admittedly. That's just a thought.
Yeah,
What do you
Nova
think, Tim?
Life is a
I can see your brains turning.
well. No,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking Nova is such a tough life to live. So my daughter just graduated from JMU. She's working up there right now. So she commutes an hour to get to the closest metro, and then it's another hour
Oof.
metro into to work. Yeah, and that's before your shift even starts. It's a
So
tough
4
life.
hours of daily travel.
Yeah,
It's tough. Yes. DC is a very tough. My daughter lives in DC too, and it's a very tough city, and it's very tough. I mean, it's just it's lovely, but it's rigorous.
Yeah, and I just think that to your point, especially like with HQ2 with Amazon up there, people are going to get tired of that, and it's just like, hey, when you get tired of it and you want to start a business, or if you look down here, and we could attract a lot of people when they've had enough of the metro life.
And that's the point where we need to be hitting them. That's the point where they realize, oh, I'd like to, I found somebody, I want to start a family. Oh, I need to buy a bigger house, but I can't afford. My daughter was telling me there's no way. She works in nonprofits. She said, there's no way I can afford a bigger place than what I have right now in Washington, D.C. There's no way. So I'm going to have to think about something different. So right now she is splitting her time because she can work remotely. She's in knowledge management for a nonprofit company in DC, there's been so much turbulence in that space since January. But she's trying to make that happen. So she's here a couple days a week. She goes up to DC like now 2 days a week, every other week, and it's working out. And so,
I tell you,
I would never move back there. That's where I grew up. I would never move.
Really?
Back.
You wouldn't? Yeah.
No, absolutely not. They have trails, which are nice. We don't really have those.
I will say, shout out to the Newport News new Amtrak station there. Taking the train up there is so pleasant. It is fabulous.
Oh, they have a new train station there in Newport News?
Yeah.
I got to go check that out. Because I love living down here by our train station, except they've totally. It's irritating me what they've done with the parking at the downtown.
Yeah, it's a brand new train station, tons of parking.
Wow.
It is it's great.
Yeah, and see, we have 3 trains a day that leave. I could pick up my camera right here and show you where they leave from because they're right over there. But we have 3 trains a day going up there, and that makes that completely feasible. So to be making a DC salary but living here is could be a kind of a good thing. We should let people know, particularly those who can remote work, that's the possibility. She's very present in their office when they need her to be there. And the rest of the time, she's down here having a great time. So.
You could be not only a traffic reporter, you could be a train reporter too.
This is true. I do feel a 4th act calling my name. Yes. Transpo with Cathy. Yeah. That's right. I like
it. It just dawned on me, like as we round out this show, but I tell everyone, I'm like, Hampton Roads is the biggest small town that you'll ever live in. You can get a meeting with anybody. Like you're super close to decision makers, but thinking that through just a little bit further just now, it's like, I guess the only downfall of that is that we move at the speed of a small town too. So
yes.
But if you're looking for that small town feel, Hampton Roads, we have that. Everyone knows everyone. It's amazing to me how tight the circles are amongst folks.
And have you run into the what I think is so interesting too is how a lot of people are related to other people. Like, you'll peel back the onion. Oh, wait a minute. You're second cousins of that one who married that.
It's stunning to me.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. No question.
Well,
but I think that would be fun, is to do a very targeted, and I've been trying to talk everybody into that, but I know they're trying to do kind of an attraction survey for the region, but I think it has to be a very targeted thing to professionals who grew up here, who are living in Washington and New York and are hitting that age, maybe early, mid, late 30s, where they're thinking, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I've done my DC adventure and it's time to go home.
Maybe even if you just do the traffic aspect of that, people really complain about traffic here, and it's like, okay, well, 4 hours of travel time for Tim's daughter just to go to work every single day, and here you're in what is it, 22 minutes, I think is the average
Yes.
traffic here, something like
Yeah.
that, like each way.
Yeah.
So I mean, like just looking at that number.
Oh, unbelievable. And just the basic things like going to a department store or going to my daughter, where she said it takes her, she's about miles from the what do you call it, the Trader Joe's, the Whole Foods or whatever, and it takes sometimes an hour to get there, because of traffic. And so
She lives in DC proper.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she said she loves it. She loves living in the city, but it's dawning on her that she will never, she can't afford more than she's got right now. And it's a very hard, she said, I'm getting tired of taking an hour to go to the Trader Joe's, so she drives down to the Harris Teeter. She's like, you have no idea how wonderful this is. Go there, got the thing, back, no worries. Yeah. So all of those things become more attractive the longer you're in a place and the tougher it gets to live there.
Not to mention just the housing prices. Like my mom lives 90 minutes. She lives kind of close to where your daughter lives, Tim.
Yeah.
And it's 90 minutes basically from DC by car. Let's just say, no, it's not that far, but it could be 90 minutes, right? I mean, the amount that she lives in a townhouse.
Okay.
The amount that those are going for in her neighborhood now is just astronomical. Like she's like, yeah, the comps are like $800,000. I'm like, you're not close.
Right? Yes, exactly. Yes.
And so it just keeps going down, south. It's wild. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, so when my wife has to travel up to Northern Virginia, she can make it we live in York County. She can make it from York County to Nova in the same amount of time it takes for people within Nova to commute within Northern Virginia.
Wow. That's amazing.
I mean, so like from York County to Springfield, she can make it there in the same amount of time as someone who lives on the other side of Northern Virginia into Springfield. It's crazy.
It is amazing. It is crazy. But anyway, I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
I can't quantify it, but it just makes sense to me.
You might be the first guest that has done the research to know where we're going to round out that last question. But is there anything else you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? It's been
here's the thing. I know you don't have guests back, but if that opportunity ever presented itself, I would just love to come back because I really enjoyed this conversation.
I feel like this is one of those shows where like usually the hour goes decently fast, but this is one of the shows where it went. I looked and it was like 45, and I was like, "Oh boy,
there was a lot we didn't get to.
We haven't done anything." And I find that's my fault. I apologize. So this could be like one of those like 4-hour shows. I feel like we could have actually.
We're living into it. So
part 2 will happen.
Good.
Part 2 will happen.
I look forward to that.
From right now to whenever we book this, we want you to be nervous because.
Great. Well, actually, this has been such a delightful experience. I probably won't be nervous about the next one, but yes, it's interesting to be on the other side of the thing. So,
Cathy, do we have a food of the region? Do we have?
Yes, white sauce.
See that has surfaced. White sauce and the orange crush are the things that have surfaced at the top.
Yeah. White sauce. I think to me, white sauce is just the essential. Yeah. Because, and my daughter, when she was at UVA, she introduced that at the Mexican restaurant. She said, "Do you have white sauce?" And he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so she has this little cadre of friends, and she got them to start making white sauce and bring it.
Oh, really? So did they reverse engineer how to make it?
Yep. Apparently, it's not that complicated, but it's magical. I don't know how to, it's one of those things like.
It is good.
Yes, it really, really is. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's white sauce.
Allegedly, the Orange Crush was actually created in Maryland. There's there's a little battle.
Interesting.
We have to hold on to it though. We're not going to give up the fight.
Of course we do. Yes, like Dumars with the ice cream. I'm sorry, that's where it happened. No.
That's not alleged. That is factual.
Of course, but then some other community was trying. I'm like, no. I'm spiteful.
The World's Fair, right?
We're going to go to the mat over that. Yeah, we're going to go to the mat over that. Yeah, that's right. I love that it's still the same. Like I love that you can drive to Dumars and see them making the cones, you know, fourth, fifth generation standing there and making the, and that's just such an iconic part of, you know, if you've lived here and grown up here, that's another thing about the people who've grown up there. Everybody's been to Dumars who's grown, most people who've been at least in the 5 South Side cities has been to Dumars. It's just, I don't know, it's iconic.
I love Dumars.
Me too. Me too. Me too.
A mince with slaw, pineapple shake. It's rock and roll.
Yeah, and I am a double slaw barbecue girl. Put the double slaw on there. That is stratospherically wonderful. Yes.
Okay.
Love it.
Looking forward to part 2.
Me too.
Coming soon. You know.
Okay.
You know.
Hey,
what will happen? What will
Yeah.
happen first? You back on the show, or like Stranger Things finally comes out?
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Probably Stranger Things.
Probably Stranger Things. Yeah. Yeah. I hope it's me coming back on the show, but
Yeah, this was delightful. I really, really enjoyed it.
So
Turns
fun,
out I had
guys.
nothing to be
Thank
nervous
you.
about either.
Oh, good. I'm glad we held hands and got through it. I love that. I love that.
Let the record show.
Part of my day.
Let the record show 0 nerves on this end.
Okay. But Zach, that's one of the things that makes you so special is that I feel like you're not scared of anything. I feel like
I get nervous. We got something
Really?
coming up August 21st, Startup World Cup at Sandler Center.
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever walked into that venue, but there's a lot of seats. So
there are a ton of seats in there. Yeah.
When Tim told me, yeah, I think we're gonna do it at Sandler, I'm like,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, I can just hear the heart beating already. Like,
But you're just so good in those live venues. You'll be great. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
As I say, no matter what, the show must go on, and we'll push through it.
Good.
And have fun
Good.
doing it.
Yes. Well, I very much look forward to a return visit. This has been so delightful. Thank you so much. I hope our listeners had a good time of it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. Have a wonderful day.